Hey guys, Chela Walks here, reading to you from Facing Love Addiction by Mellody. No copyright infringement intended. Last week we covered chapter 2, which was the characteristics of the love addict. Bit of a tough one, that one. In that, some points had risen about a profound lack of self-esteem for the love addict, or from the love addict, and where that can originate from. Also self-neglect and some of the consequences of a dysfunctional childhood being carried over into adulthood, and how that might look in the love addict's relationships as an adult. Now, today's chapter, we begin with the emotional cycles of the love addict. So we'll begin now. Classic love addicts move through a cycle of emotional states as they meet someone, try to live out the childhood fantasy of being rescued, live in denial about the inappropriate behavior of their partner, experience frustration and failure because it seems that nothing they do will make it work, try harder, come out of denial about the inappropriate behavior of a partner, begin obsessing and behaving compulsively, then begin all over again to fantasize about the relationship. Each time they cycle through this pattern, the experience becomes more and more toxic to the love addict and to the love avoidant, as we shall see later. The cycles that is this next part, is figure 1 illustrates this cycle, and I suggest, you can see that, I hope you can see that, to take a screenshot of that. If it's not clear, let me know in the comments. So that is the 9 stages of the emotional cycle of love addict, and we're about to explore that now. So, number 1, the love addict is attracted to the seduction and apparent power of the love avoidant. Love addicts meet someone attractive to them, usually a person who is very involved in a lot of things and seems to be managing them very well. This person's apparent power is attractive to love addicts because, as we've seen, love addicts have been set up to believe they are unable to take care of themselves and are looking for someone who can do the job. Also, if the person is a love avoidant, he will be behind a wall of seduction, which makes the love addict feel special. The love addict's need to feel loved then gets triggered. Often people who are attracted into addictive relationships talk about love at first sight. I believe we should be cautious when we're experiencing love at first sight. It may really be addiction at first sight. The love addict feels high as the fantasy is triggered. Number 2 in the cycle. When love addicts begin to develop a relationship with the apparently powerful love avoidant, their minds rebound back to the fantasy they developed in childhood about the rescuer. For a woman, the rescuer is some form of the knight in shining armor who has loving feelings for her. For a man, the other party appears to be a super female who has loving feelings for them. In either case, the selected rescuer also demonstrates this love by an initial and usually intense connection with the love addict, which finally gives meaning and vitality to the love addict's life. Love addicts do not see who the party really is. Love addicts do not see who the other party really is, but instead see the image they created in childhood. They focus on this fantasy image, which they place like a beautiful mask over the head of the real human being. Love addicts assign to their partners all the qualities of their childhood fantasy rescuers, ignoring their partner's reality, good qualities and bad. Love addicts truly believe their partners have the fantasy's rescuer attributes and will soon create a wonderful life of wall-to-wall loving and caring. Even though love addicts perceive love avoidance to be very powerful, in reality they are not. As we shall see in the next chapter, these chosen partners are also addict codependents who avoid intimacy through their addictions. But this reality is not clear to the love addict. Instead of developing mature intimacy, love addicts seek to enmesh, to merge, to completely connect with their partners. It could hardly be any other way because the needs of love addicts are immense, created by their painful abandonment in childhood. One of the most interesting facets of love addiction is the way love addicts try so hard to get their partners to feel and do the things that match the fantasy they had held in mind for so long, and the intensity of the resulting frustration or anger they feel when their partners do not match it. As a love addict, I had an incredible ability to see what I wanted and not see what was actually there. I had this idea of who my partner was going to be as our relationship unfolded, and I was determined that he would be that way. This is the honeymoon phase of the love addict. Some people call this romance addiction. As love addicts play out their fantasies in their minds, they experience a wonderful emotional, physical, and mental high. If the relationship is a sexual romantic one, for example, the sex may be wonderful. Love addicts now enjoy romantic thoughts and interludes similar to the euphoric state they felt in childhood when they first developed the fantasy and used it to escape the intolerable reality of their original abandonment. Number 3. The love addict feels relief from the pain. Experiencing the high from playing out the fantasy in their minds relieves the pain of the reality of being left alone, feeling empty, and not being loved by the partner in the way that they want to be loved. As relief comes, love addicts create more fantasy and begin to feel valued, complete, and full. Love addicts believe they really found the person so long dreamed of, the person who will rescue them from their inability to care for themselves, from their loneliness, emptiness, and lack of self-love, and from their inability to feel safe in the world without someone to protect them. Love addicts believe they have finally found the relationship that will make them feel whole. This process is often called romance. It is quite prevalent in our society. In reality, the person on whom love addicts impose this fantasy is not capable of fulfilling the fantasy at all, but emotionally and or physically abandons the love addict and focuses on an addiction outside of the relationship. Number 4. The love addict shows more neediness and denies reality of their avoidance walls. As love addicts feel safer, they begin to show more neediness. But as this neediness appears, love avoidants walk away faster, leaving more and more noticeable clues that they are trying to get distance from the love addict. Even as love addicts gain increasing information about the love avoidants' preoccupation with putting distance between them, they ignore or deny the fact that their partner is not present for them in the relationship. They overlook or minimize obvious signs and excuse the behavior of the love avoidant. He's so busy right now because it's the fall sales season. A wife thinks, forgetting that her husband was gone just as much in the winter, spring, and summer seasons. He deserves to have some time with his friends at the bar after work, the mother says, but in reality her adult son stays out with the guys until at least past dinner time every day, and sometimes all night. If he does come home, he may fall asleep in front of the television set or in the bed. Number 5. The love addict develops awareness of partner's walls and behavior outside the relationship as denial crumbles. Eventually love addicts begin to have evidence of behavior outside the relationship that becomes increasingly hard to deny because the love avoidants are now flagrantly running away from them. Eventually, the reality of this behavior becomes clear to the love addict, and the fantasy and denial both begin to crumble. Now the love addict's tolerance of the distancing behavior declines. When the pain gets more intense, love addicts earnestly begin to try to control their partners, and threats come out. The intensity escalates, and may become very much like the exciting action-packed movies or TV soaps that many of us like to see but pretend we're not in. At this point, when love addicts realize that something or someone else is more important to their partner than their relationship, their fantasy shifts to a nightmare. Now the image of the person who first abandoned them in childhood, a parent or caregiver, comes to mind. They mentally shift from focusing on the make-believe rescuer image and begin to focus on the image of the original abandoner. They still do not see who their partner is, but now assign this person the attributes of their abandoning childhood caregiver. Out of the resulting pain, anger, fear, and emptiness, love addicts may resort to extreme measures to try to bargain with or threaten somehow to control their partners and prevent both the continuation of the emotional distancing and the actual physical abandoning of the relationship. Love addicts experience an obsessive need to know where their partners are going and what they are doing all the time. If their partners don't tell them, love addicts often use other methods, such as following the partner, patrolling the places they think their partner might be, or calling people and asking about the partner. Other love addicts experience the obsessive need to know, but endure it silently. Love addicts may rage and get hysterical. They may start telling everybody about being abandoned, in an effort to get somebody to stop the love avoidant. They might even talk to the partner's boss. Sometimes they may resort to telling people they meet at the grocery store about the love avoidance behavior, or even announcing it in church. During this part of the cycle, love addicts often manipulate extensively, which constitutes attempts at indirect control. They might start doing one or more of the following: dressing seductively, going on vacations with a partner, trying geographical cures, moving to a new town or neighborhood in the effort to start over, thinking that this will cure the problem, having affairs, trying to get their partners interested by abandoning themselves or displaying extreme neediness. Love addicts do almost anything they can think of to get the behavior of the love avoidant under control. And since almost all the coping methods they learned as an abandoned child are dysfunctional, abusive, and self-defeating, the relationship becomes more and more toxic. Number 6. The love addict enters withdrawal. Love addicts finally accept the fact that their partners have abandoned them for someone or something else. In other words, they fully recognize at last that there is something going on in the other party's life that is more important than being in the relationship with them. The love addict's drug, the partner, is now withdrawn, and they are intensely aware of the reality of the partner's absence. At this point, love addicts move into withdrawal, just as any other addict goes into withdrawal when the addictive substance is removed. Withdrawal from an addiction to a person is an intense emotional experience, including pain, fear, sometimes anger, and some combination of these. Or some combination of these. Excuse me, I've just lost my place. This is another way in which love addiction can be distinguished from codependence. While the cessation of an addictive process creates withdrawal, recovery from codependence does not. It is also useful to realize that the love avoidant who is not addicted to a person does not usually experience intense emotions of withdrawal when the relationship ends. he or she is still bent on trying to avoid the intimacy of the relationship. Now the love addict's original feelings of childhood abandonment are activated, along with adult feelings about the current experience of being left. As the intense emotions of pain, fear, anger, and emptiness from the original childhood abandonment combine with adult pain, fear, anger, jealousy, and emptiness about what is going on in their life now, love addicts may feel overwhelmed. This combination of old and current emotions is not as manageable as current adult emotions by themselves might be. A person can tolerate powerful adult feelings, or can handle re-experiencing childhood feelings as they are released in therapy, but the combination of the two can be crushing. This combined pain is extremely intense and can trigger experiences ranging from feeling depressed to feeling suicidal. The fear can range from anxiety to panic. The anger can range from frustration to feeling rageful and perhaps homicidal. If the love avoidant is a sex addict and turns to another lover, the love addict's anger combined with shame carried from childhood can erupt in the form of jealousy, accompanied by a tremendous need to get even. This experience is devastating when the love avoidant leaves, because love addicts now face two factors. One, intense emotional reality and very stark physical losses, such as loss of income, loss of house and other material possessions, loss of a second parent for the children, and two, all the childhood feelings from the original experience of abandonment and neglect that have accumulated and are ready to fire off when stimulated by the experience of being left in adulthood. The experience of withdrawal from love addiction can be very serious and so intense that many people cannot endure it enough to get into recovery. Many love addicts need help and support from outside of themselves. A therapist, a support group, a 12-step program can be helpful sources of such help and support. Many love addicts who have brought themselves into reality for a brief moment and glimpse the devastating nature of the withdrawal experience often retreat back into denial rather than face reality and fully enter withdrawal. Many others who enter withdrawal and get overwhelmed by the experience immediately jump into the next point in the cycle, obsessing. This pulls them out of touch with their painful feelings because they stay focused on their obsessive thoughts. Number 7, the love addict obsesses about how to get the love avoidant to return or how to get even. Love addiction, like other addictive processes, is an obsessive-compulsive process used to relieve or medicate intolerable reality. At this stage of the cycle, love addicts change the focus of their obsession from the fantasy image of a rescuing hero to either getting the partner back or getting even. Caught in the throes of emotional withdrawal pains, they become obsessive planners. They start planning, which reduces the intensity of the emotional withdrawal. Whenever love addicts are involved in obsessing, they are not experiencing the full reality of what is happening to them. If the pain is the greatest feeling, love addicts may start obsessively planning how to get relief from the pain, usually through a secondary addiction. They might start planning to get sexual with somebody else, which might indicate a possible sex addiction, create a new relationship and get addicted to that person, turn to the children and get addicted to one of them as a love addict, get drunk, which might indicate alcoholism, or go on a spending spree, which might indicate spending addiction. For example, Albert felt intense pain after his roommate Todd ended their relationship and moved out. He sat alone one evening, wearing a comfortable sweatsuit, mindlessly watching television. The thought of eating a bowl of ice cream entered his mind, and the image of a luscious bowl of ice cream shimmered delightfully before his mind's eye. He had difficulty following the plot of the television show because of his growing obsession about eating the ice cream. If the fear is the greatest feeling... Sorry, my neighbours. I'll just close the window. Don't mind me. Apologies again. Now, Albert and his ice cream. If the fear is the greatest feeling, love addicts may start planning how to get the love avoidant to return. Planning to get the person back seems absurd on the surface, but the reason love addicts want their partners back is because love avoidants can be very charming, friendly, sensitive, have a very charming, friendly, sensitive side to their personality, which is usually a large part of what attracted the love addict in the first place. Alice, for instance, couldn't sleep because of her anxiety about being alone. Her boyfriend, Frank, had been gone for only 3 days, and Alice was feeling pretty washed out and very lonely. This particular night, she remembered an earlier time in their dating when she mailed Frank a provocative note, in which she included a pair of panties, asking him to meet her at a certain restaurant. She imagines his reaction if he were to get another note from her now, and spends a lot of time obsessing about sending him such a note and playing out his possible positive reaction in her mind. Gwen's fear of being alone prompted a slightly different obsession. She found out where Gary's new girlfriend lived, and that he visited her almost every night. Gwen started to obsess about taking both children, driving over, knocking on the door. In her mind's eye, she sees the girlfriend open the door and rehearses speeches where she begins to beg him to come home, thinking that the sight of his 2 children and herself compared to the tiny apartment and the girlfriend would make him come back. Ida, a widow aged 55, has been told by her 30-year-old son, Bob, that he is going to get married and move to a nearby town to start a new job and won't be seeing her as often. He ignored her negative comments about his bride-to-be and made his own decision. In fear of being on her own without her son's constant caregiving, she obsesses about ways to lure him into staying near her. Her obsessions include being helpless about hiring the right roofer to roof the house, replacing her 5-year-old car, and so on, instead of learning to do these things for herself or asking for advice from experienced friends. Paula's fear of being alone after her best friend and roommate has walked out prompts this scenario. She imagines counting up how many sleeping pills she has in the bathroom, swallowing some of them, then calling Nancy and telling her what she's done. She can imagine Nancy rushing back, driving Paula to the hospital, and waiting in anguish to find out if she survives. If the anger and jealousy are the strongest emotion, love addicts often plan how to get even. This can range from creating discomfort for the love avoidant and any playmate involved, to more extreme actions involving destruction of personal property or even bodily damage. Sylvia planned a relatively mild form of revenge. She imagined how Charlie's face would look if he came back to the house to pack and found his side of the closet stripped and bare. Tina's obsession wasn't quite so moderate. After her husband, a prominent businessman in their town, had left, she obsessed about driving into the parking lot of a nightclub where he often went at night and bashing his new Mercedes to a crinkled pulp with a sledgehammer. 8. The love addict compulsively acts out obsessive plans after the Number 8, the love addict compulsively acts out obsessive plans. After the obsessive planning phase, love addicts usually compulsively act out one or more of the plans they made. They may either run away from the relationship and initiate the same cycle with somebody else, or they may get the love avoidant to return and repeat the same cycle with the same person. Albert carried out his plan by putting on his sneakers, grabbing his billfold, and driving to the grocery store at 2 o'clock in the morning. Keeping his head down to avoid seeing anyone, he picked out 3 flavors of ice cream, 4 bags of cookies, and several cartons of soft drinks. When he got to the only checkout lane that was open, he saw that there were 3 other customers ahead of him, all overweight people in sweatsuits with carts full of junk food. Albert planned and carried out an eating binge to take the edge off his pain about Todd's absence. Alice carried out her plan by writing out the provocative note, buying a new pair of sexy bikini panties, tucking them in the envelope, and mailing it to Frank. 3 days later, she went to the restaurant at the appointed time, hair done perfectly, nails newly polished, a new dress perfumed exquisitely. When Frank showed up, she begged him to come back, and he melted and returned. Alice reduced her fear of being alone by making and then carrying out a plan to get Frank back. The obsessive planning and compulsive action reduced her fear, even during the 3 days she waited for their rendezvous at the restaurant. She was in the compulsive obsessive stage of the addictive cycle. Gwen finally got the kids into the car, drove over to her ex-husband's girlfriend's apartment, and knocked on the door. When the girlfriend opened the door, Gwen blurted out, "Tommy wants to tell his daddy about his loose tooth." Her fear of being alone drove her to behave in this extreme manner. Ida and Paula's fear also moved them into the compulsive part of the emotional cycle. Ida began bombarding her son Bob with her helplessness about the roof, the new car, and the countless other things. Paula took some sleeping pills and called Nancy for help. A week after Sylvia's husband had gone, she carried out her plan by cleaning out Charlie's side of the closet and giving all the clothes to Goodwill before he could come back and get them. Her anger and jealousy prompted her to plan and then carry out this plot designed to create discomfort for her husband. Tina's anger and jealousy actually drove her to get a sledgehammer, drive to the parking lot, and bash her husband's Mercedes. She was arrested for destruction of private property, and the story was a sensation in the news in that town the next day. Shannon's anger and jealousy led to an extreme form of revenge. Shannon's husband left and filed for divorce. A few months later, he went on a vacation with another woman. While he was gone, Shannon took their 2 children, broke into his apartment, shot the 2 children, and then shot herself. This is an excessively violent response, of course, and most love addicts are not driven this far, but the withdrawal experience of severe love addiction can drive someone seeking revenge to extreme measures. Progressive stages of love addiction. I have seen several behaviors in love addicts I have counseled that are similar to those of people who have other addictions. They are worth examining in detail. Number 1 is the increasing tolerance of inappropriate behavior from others. As the fantasy begins to wear off, love addicts desperately continue to deny the growing evidence that their partner is excluding them with walls. Their ability to tolerate and ignore flagrant signs of distancing increases. For example, let's say Marianne, a love addict in this stage, comes to see her counsellor. The counsellor might say, "Well, how was this week?" "Well, he only smacked me 3 times. but it wasn't that bad. I didn't get any bruises or anything. The counsellor is dismayed, observing the increased tolerance of inappropriate behaviour. Marianne comes back next week for her session, and the counsellor asks about it, how this week went. Well, he slapped me about 6 times, but I only got 1 black eye, so I guess it wasn't so terrible. This is increasing tolerance. It could also be a man increasingly tolerating the inappropriate behaviour of a female love avoidant. Perhaps he says, she stayed out all night, only once this week. Number 2, greater dependence on the person. Love addicts surrender more and more of their responsibility for daily tasks of the relationship to the other party. More and more of the love addict's needs and wants become the responsibility of their partner. For example, Sandra gave her husband, Paul, the trust papers to her inherited family estate, saying, "Paul, you can handle this for me. You're smart. I know you can handle it better than I can." Angie requires her daughter Mabel to take the clothes to the cleaners, saying that she forgets which day the special price is offered. Joe insists that his close friend Max be the one to call and set up their lunch appointments, saying that he just can't remember where Max's phone number is. 3. Decrease in self-care. Love addicts who at one time dress nicely and take care of their personal grooming may begin to show a greater state of dishevelment each time they come to see their counsellor. For example, Fred, who had a neatly trimmed moustache and medium-length hair, came to his therapy group with increasingly longer and shaggier hair. His moustache began to cover his top lip and soak up coffee as he sipped it. Maureen, usually attractively dressed in skirts and blouses, began to show up in baggy sweatsuits, and she too stopped getting her hair cut or styled. Number 4, numbness to feelings. Love addicts continue to experience waves of pain, anger, fear, shame, and jealousy. Yet when they talk to their counsellors, they report being numb to those feelings. Number 5, feeling trapped or stymied. If some kind of relief doesn't come, love addicts may enter the final stages of the addiction. An overpowering sense of being stymied and helpless to fix the relationship or to escape the pain by ending it. Reality becomes even more overwhelming because love addicts have lost the ability to care for and value themselves. If love addicts enter this stage and begin to feel stymied, they also may experience increasing despair, disillusionment, and depression. Their behavior can become bizarre and inappropriate. Along with the feelings of being trapped, they may experience a loss of power that leads to a loss of the ability to respond to what is actually happening. Number 6, the final stages. As love addicts progress through the stages of illness, they feel abused by their partners. At the same time, however, they are abusive towards their partners. One form of abuse is the inability to see the ways in which the other person is able to be there for them, and occasions on which the partner's behaviour is connecting rather than distancing. Instead, love addicts see almost everything the other person does in a negative light. For example, the partner may compliment the love addict, which is one way to be present for someone. When love addicts interpret this through their negative filter, they cannot hear the compliment. Their partner might say, "You did a really good job on your garden this year." And the love addict may respond, "Well, it's not really the way I wanted it. Last year's garden was better," and get so focused on feeling inadequate that they miss the compliment. The A love addict's demand to be loved in spite of the impact of immature, irrational, offensive behavior towards the love avoidant is one way the love addict abuses the love avoidant. It's unreasonable to expect to be loved unconditionally, especially when one is acting inappropriately towards the other person. Love addicts also have trouble seeing how difficult they are to live with because they are so focused on how difficult the partner is making their life. They don't see themselves as the addict. They abuse their partners by demanding to enmesh with them and to be taken care of. Excuse me. Yet they think these are reasonable requests. The fact is, correction. Yet they think these are reasonable requests that, in fact, it is evidence of love and trust. Love addicts think that the love avoidance need to get away from them is abnormal, when actually what they are asking for is threatening and more than anyone can give. Love addicts enter withdrawal, then obsess about and often carry out some plan of retaliation, but fail to see this behavior as offensive. Threatening or actually attempting suicide, telling the boss all about the gory details of their other's party's private life, bashing cars, dragging children to another woman's apartment and using them as pawns to manipulate the partner, giving away the partner's clothes without permission, raging, getting hysterical. All are examples of offender behavior. As any of these continues, love addicts themselves are jettisoning the relationship. Here endeth the chapter. So, if you are feeling suicidal, please seek help. You do not have to be alone, and you do not have to be your own therapist. Get a therapist. Alright, so next week's chapter is going to be chapter 4, and that is going to be chapter 4. Getting there. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, so chapter 4. So sorry, this is taking me forever. Chapter 4, the partners love addicts choose, characteristics of the love avoidant. That was actually a really hard chapter to read, that last one. So please comment and subscribe below if anything has come up for you during this chapter reading. And I encourage you to look after yourselves. Till next time, and thank you for watching. This has been Chela Walks, reading Facing Love Addiction by Mellody. No copyright infringement intended. Alright, thank you guys. See you next time.